A lot of folks, some folks like to have a nicer thing and
Mhm.
don't want to have to go into debt to do it. Like, why does that have to be the story?
Right. Or maybe just security so that you're not afraid the next time layoffs are coming
Mhm.
that, well, I don't know where my next paycheck's going to come from, right? Just
Exactly.
to have
Being able to
enough to feel okay.
right. Being able to actually save, to look into your account and say, well, my stock portfolio looks like this, my 401k looks like this, I have this amount in savings, and I know that I am okay if something happens with this position because I've got at least a year and a half of living expenses.
Hey, I'm Tine Zekis.
And hey, I'm Ileka Falette. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. And we are going to get right into it with a topic that is near and dear to my heart, imposter syndrome. I guess before we dig in, Ileka, what do you think of when you hear the term imposter syndrome?
Oh, you know what? We hear it all the time, right? And imposter syndrome became like this thing that folks are talking about. And I think what happened is so many people didn't realize that they were actually living in it. You know, and what I think of is I I want to be doing this thing, but I might not be good enough to do it. I'm not the expert. I only have 27 years of experience in this, so I can't possibly show anyone else how to do it, right?
Yep.
I can't possibly be the expert in this. So,
Yes, absolutely. And right, for me, I feel like there's a few different layers of it, right? So some of it's, I'm not I don't have the right credentials to be doing this. Some of it
mhm,
is if I show a mistake, if it's not perfect,
right.
everyone's going to know that, I shouldn't have had this job, or I
Mhm.
just got lucky and got this job, or whatever it is. And um, for me, I feel like one of the biggest things to acknowledge, especially for Black women, is that imposter syndrome is not your failing. Like, it sounds all clinical, it sounds like a disease, right? You got the syndrome. It's not,
Right.
right, um it's not really in the DSM. You can't be diagnosed with imposter syndrome. But
Exactly.
when I'm, especially when I think about, I'm in a white male dominated industry, there's no one who looks like me in leadership.
Mhm.
Imposter syndrome is not, I'm not crazy. I'm just, my eyes are open, right? I'm always being
Right.
treated like I don't belong. I'm always being
Mhm.
given those messages, right? You can't achieve this, you can't do that. No one who looks like you has done it. And so I
Mhm.
always try to even start with, it's not you. So I even talk about, actually imposter systems, right? So those are the
Mhm.
structures, the institutional racism, the sexism,
Yeah.
the all of the isms, right, that are designed to exclude us.
Mhm.
And then we're
Yeah.
just sitting here aware and we're like, "Ooh, maybe I don't belong here." So,
Exactly.
yeah,
That
so
are
for me,
designed to say, even though you're qualified or overqualified, you're not good enough,
right,
or
right.
you have to do these 115 things in order to get this role.
Mhm.
Whereas this guy here, he just gets the role
Right, you gotta
straight
do
out
it
of high
10
school.
times better than everybody else just to get
Right.
get your foot in the
Hmm.
door, right? And so for me, part of me is like, "Okay, so how do we tear down the patriarchy and, capitalism and all the things?" And it's like,
Right.
"Or"
Come through kicking in the door, kick in the door, waving, right? Just
right.
knock it out. Yep.
But, like, assuming that stuff's not gonna be resolved today,
Mhm.
I want to sort of in the meantime help Black women, right, as individuals and as a community, figure out, okay, well, how do I get through my day to day and not let the impact of imposter systems,
Right.
you know, dictate how my career is going to be, dictate how my
Mhm.
well being is going to be, right? And so it's about, the the fault is not on us, but the solutions are still going to have to come from us. Is kind of how I think about
Exactly. It's funny because when you're talking about this, it makes me think of a friend of mine. I remember she had like at this time 15 years of experience. And and when I say experience, it was like 15 years of progressive experience, understanding and learning, and also had gotten her MBA, right? And got an executive MBA from a really, really good school.
it. Hmm.
And so she goes into a role, and actually she didn't go into the role, she was looking for a new opportunity, right? And instead of looking, I remember having the conversation. She's like, "Yeah, I'm looking for this HR manager role." And I thought, HR manager, but you've been here for 15 years. So I will say, let me pause real quick and say, imposter syndrome wasn't usually a thing for me because I was in consulting. And in consulting, I saw all these people doing this and I thought, I can do that. I'm going to go for it. Like, and that was just always my mindset. But
Sure.
looking at my friend, I was like, wait, why are you going for this HR manager role? Shouldn't you be director or senior director? And she's like, well, I haven't done benefits yet, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done that. And I said, well, I've got a friend who wasn't, black. It wasn't a black woman. And I said, and she hasn't done all that, and she's the senior director in HR at a major Fortune 500 company. So why not you? And she still had that mindset,
Yep.
imposter syndrome, of, well, I have to do all these things.
I have to
And it's
check all
something
the
that
boxes.
exactly, it's something that system has taught us. We've got to check every box. And so literally it took her another 5 years to get out of that mindset to finally go after a senior director role. And now I think she's like VP of HR for a major company now. But
Mm.
she had to come out of that imposter syndrome in order to step into it.
Right.
So I often say, and I would ask you, how many Black women have you seen hold themselves back in their careers, not getting to this next level because of imposter syndrome?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
Mm,
countless, right? I worked with one woman who actually, well, I'll start
mhm,
with, she heard me speak. So I
mhm,
was speaking at an event on earning the salary you deserve. And during my talk, she had just gotten a promotion and it was
mhm,
coming with a $6,000 raise.
mhm.
And she knew
A
that
what?
that was under what she should be getting. I,
Right.
she
Is it
knew
even a promotion at that point? That's the what do you get? The
the
yearly
annual
salary
increase.
increase. Yeah,
Right.
that's what that
Right.
is.
And so during my talk, she emailed and said, "Hey, can we talk on Monday about my
Mm.
compensation?" And she went
Oh,
and doubled that $6,000.
love
Then
it.
we met. We had one coaching session and we talked about
Mhm.
the role she was in and the kinds of roles that she
Yeah.
could be in, just as you were saying, right? Well, why
Right.
don't you have a director title? Why don't you have this kind of title? And
Exactly.
she had been contacted by some recruiters for roles that she had originally thought, oh, I can't go for that yet.
Mhm. Yep.
Within 6 weeks of talking with me, she landed a job and she was at like 80,000 maybe,
Mm.
195.
I almost fainted.
Right. So
Drastic. A
she went
$100,000 increase.
life changing. That's a life changing
It
amount of
is.
money. And it was within weeks of deciding
Mhm.
that
That shift.
she deserved something different, that she was qualified for something different. It wasn't
Exactly.
she didn't acquire a new skill in that
Yep.
6 weeks, right? She didn't acquire a new degree or
Exactly.
certification, right? It was getting out of her own head about what she can and can't do.
Right.
And it changed her life
Yep.
immediately. And that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
those are those are the kinds of
Yeah.
stories that get me smiling for weeks, right?
Exactly.
It's almost like if you can flip that switch,
Yep.
right,
Mhm.
and just totally change your trajectory.
Exactly. And it just makes me think, for every person, every woman out there that has actually happened to, there's 50 more out there that are sitting in that $75,000 a year job, or
Yep.
even $100,000 a year job, where someone has told them, you know what, at least you're making $100,000. Like, I
Right.
remember
Once
I
you
had a
hit
manager
6
that said that
figures,
to me one time. Yeah, at least you're making six figures. How nice is that? That must feel good. And you know what I heard? I remember when that manager said that to me. And mine wasn't, it wasn't about being Black for me. It was about, oh, I'm working from home. And this was well before the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
So this is like 2010, 2011. So I'm thinking, well, working from home, I guess they aren't going to pay me a lot more. Until I found out that other people were making more, right? But
Right.
so you get into that mindset that, well, I guess fine.
I should be
And when
grateful.
but then when she said those words, at least you're making six figures. What what it said to me was, what I heard was, well, little Black girl, at least you're getting six figures because most Black women out here aren't. And I thought, immediately I was like, excuse me? Like, and that was one of the things that triggered me to say, nope. And I actually had to have a conversation to even get to that number. I was
Yep.
like, yes, I was like, at this point, I need to be here because I think I was at, at like 89, 90 before that. And I was like, I need to be over 100. And
Right.
so we had a conversation, and she got me to there. And then she's like, at least you're making that. And I was like, and that's when I knew something had to shift. I knew this was a, we're gonna pay you this because you don't know no better
It's
and
wild.
you don't think you deserve more, even though you're out here killing the game and everybody is giving you all the kudos. Kudos is not enough. You got to pay me. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to stand in. Kudos is not enough for us Black women.
It's wild hearing
Hey.
you tell that story because the same thing happened to me. I had gotten up to, I was at 108.
Hmm.
Um, and this was as the pandemic was hitting,
Hmm.
and we all got pay cuts. And
Oh.
they said, well, we're not laying anyone off, but everyone's taking pay cuts. And that put me
Hmm.
down back to 100. And my manager
Mm.
said, well, at least you're still at six figures. And I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
that was my, that was
Do.
it. My next role, in fact, this is actually a story I tell to explain why you negotiate no matter what. I was
Hmm.
hoping to get 120. I was at 100. I was hoping to get 120, and I got offered 140.
Oh, wow.
And of course, my brain wanted to be like, yes, please, thank you, we're
Take
done.
it, take it. Thank you for giving me your money. You
Right.
know?
But I said what I always say, which is, thanks so much for the offer. I'd love to see the
Mhm.
benefits and get back to you.
Oh, I love it.
Then I
Mm.
hung up, got my stuff together, and was like, "Wait a minute, I'm leaving money on the table leaving mid-year. I need to start over on my deductible. I'm not gonna get my 401k match or whatever." So I did some
Mhm.
calculations, and I was like, "I'm leaving some money on the table. I'm gonna ask for another 15."
Yeah.
And I got 8, so I got 148.
Mhm.
And I thought about it, and I thought, if I had taken that 140, so excited that it was over what I was expecting,
Right.
and then they also offered the job to a white guy at 140, and he negotiates.
Mhm.
Now I'm at 140, he's at 148,
Yeah.
and every raise after that, we're getting further and further apart, right? So
Exactly.
that's but it was that same thing. As soon as he
Yeah.
said, "Well, at least you're still at six figures," I was like, "This is
Mhm.
not this is not it." And so many of the women I talk with still have in their mind that six figures is the
Is
is
it.
the end goal.
Right.
And that just and that's, I think, solidified from, I mean, there was a time where that was true,
Mhm.
where if you were making 100,000, you were good.
Well. Mhm.
That's not true in 2024.
2024.
Um,
Like, no.
there was a
Mhm.
there was a study many, many years ago that I think people
Mhm.
used for a long time, and it said that, money income was correlated with happiness only up until 75,000 annual, and then after that point, it kind of tapered off. No matter how much you made, you were still about the same happiness. They did an update to that study last year
Mhm.
and changed that number to 500,000 annually.
Wow. That is a drastic difference.
So when you're talking about, "Let me finally get to 100 and then I'll be good,"
No.
not in this not
No.
not with this,
Mm-mm.
not where we are in this part of life now, not with this
Exactly,
economy,
or
not
in society,
with
right? It's like
right,
things cost a lot more than they used to back when 75 was the number. And
right,
so
right. How much
talking
does
that
it cost a
six-figure
year of
talk,
college?
exactly, hugely different. Year of
Right.
college when I went to school was $13,000 a year. And that was I went to a HBCU, North Carolina A&T. It was amazing, Aggie Pride, and it was $13,000 a year.
Yep.
Now, My son goes to North Carolina A&T. He will be paying like 45 to $50,000 a year.
A year.
That's a drastic difference. I
Right.
don't even
And you
want to
think
think
if
about
you're
some
gonna
of the
be
other
making
schools.
100, you'll be set?
Right, exactly. When it's 200K to go to college, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Like it's drastic. But that's where imposter syndrome comes in because we sit in that, well, at least I'm making 100, you
Right.
know?
I should be grateful for what I have. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
we want to express gratitude, but not in the
Right,
way that limits us from doing more and earning more. Um,
exactly.
and I'm so glad you mentioned that, when you say for every story there's 50 other Black women out there, because, as I was doing a lot of this one-on-one coaching, I realized, there's too many of us experiencing this. So I actually wrote the book on imposter syndrome. I I have it here with.
Literally.
Oh, here it
Mhm.
is. I mean, for those listening, I'm holding up a very beautiful book. Um,
Right.
it's called Overcoming Imposter Syndrome at Work: The Black Woman's
Mhm.
Guide to Conquer Perfectionism, Stop Overthinking, and Thrive in Your Career. And my hope is that by by making something that people can get their hands on, right?
Right.
You don't have to pay $1,000 to have a coaching session with somebody, right? You can
Mhm.
drop 20 bucks on Amazon, or whatever it is, and
Right.
get access
Mm,
to this information. And so my
mhm.
hope is, through the podcast, through the book,
Mhm.
that we're reaching more and more Black women and helping shift the mindset, and helping us to really break out of
Mhm.
that cycle of, I should just be grateful for what I have. I
Exactly.
don't deserve more.
Yeah. And I love that you wrote that book because it is so necessary. And so many sit in this space of, you know, well, I mean, at least I'm at 100,000, or at least I'm not where I used to be.
Hmm.
And thinking
I have a
because
job.
you're not where you're used to be, right? At least I have a job, right? Because you're not where you used to be means that, well, and the thing is, we don't have to compare ourselves to where we were or where our parents were, right?
Hmm.
We get to look at where we want to be, right? We get to look at what we want our life to look like. What do you want your life to look like?
Right.
And how is imposter syndrome affecting that? We just talked about how my friend was being affected by it. She had multiple increases and role increases that she could have gone for, but wasn't because of imposter syndrome.
Right.
And then on your side, the woman that you coached, who was literally at $80,000 one minute. Actually, let's go a little further. She was at what, probably 68,000. We
Right. Because he was with the increase. Right.
negotiated to get to 80, and then left to another position that valued her at her role at $195,000.
Yep.
No additional skills, but just sitting in the space of, well, I guess I'm doing as best as I can. At
Yep.
least I can afford to pay my rent, or at least I can afford to pay my mortgage. And it's like, do you just want to be in a space where you can afford? Or do you want to be in a space where you thrive and you get to travel without going into major debt, and you get to actually have maybe even the car that you want, or maybe you're someone that likes to have a nice purse. Mine usually come from Target because I don't care, but a lot of folks, some folks like to have a nicer thing and
Mhm.
don't want to have to go into debt to do it. Like, why does that have to be the story?
Right. Or maybe just security, so that you're not afraid the next time layoffs are coming,
Mhm.
that, well, I don't know where my next paycheck's going to come from, right? Just
Exactly.
to have
Being
enough to feel okay.
right. Being able to actually save, to look into your account and say, well, my stock portfolio looks like this, my 401k looks like this, I have this amount in savings, and I know that I am okay if something happens with this position because I've got at least a year and a half of living expenses.
Yep.
We should be in that space. You should be in that space. And if imposter syndrome is holding you back from that space, then it's time to buy Tine's book, right? It's time to buy the imposter syndrome book so you can step into that because it's so important.
Mm.
It's funny. I love how we've talked about imposter syndrome in corporate today. I think that we should do another episode on how imposter syndrome affects like entrepreneurs and business, because
Absolutely.
it definitely affects in that space too. Um,
Absolutely.
it's holding Black women back as a whole, because we're living into a story that someone told us versus a story that is actually true. And
Mm,
it's time that we get to replace that story with what you want, your actual desires, and who you are versus who somebody told you you are. You
yep.
know, someone told you that $100,000, at least you're making that $100,000, at least you're at six figures.
Yep.
When it's like, and I should be at 250 or I should be at 300, you
Right.
know, and my skill set, my experience, and what I can do, what I can bring should have me at 300. Because I
Mm,
even look at, you know, being in corporate America, right? Saving the company millions, or creating innovative strategies to make the company millions upon millions of dollars.
right. You can't
And
give me an extra hundred
right.
thousand.
I'm still at 80. You can only pay me 80,000? There's
Yeah.
no way. There's no
Mm,
way.
mm,
And then they want to act like, well, we did recognize you at the event and you got, corporate girl of the year or whatever, right? And that
you got
came with
work from
a
home
Starbucks gift card,
Fridays.
right? Right. That came with a $25 Starbucks gift card. So you're welcome. You know, like, come on. Kidding
Mm,
me?
mm.
But
Oh
it's
my
a
goodness.
real thing. I've literally seen that. That's actually
Yeah.
happened to me.
Yeah.
And people were act like you're supposed to be happy about being listed as, uh, the top person on this project. Great job.
Right.
But not the top paid, the top person. Wonderful. Thank you.
Pay pay
Right.
me. That's it. Just that's it.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I can
But we
tell
gotta
that
ask. We gotta
I'll
we gotta jump in and ask and negotiate, right? That's the way we get paid. We can't just expect it, because it doesn't happen to us through expectation.
right.
We get to step up and ask.
Mm.
And that's why you need to get that Imposter Syndrome book. I'm telling you right there. Actually, I got mine
Absolutely.
somewhere around here too.
Well, it sounds like we still have a ton to say about imposter syndrome. So
Mm,
let's end it there. And I absolutely agree. We should do another episode, come at it from the
mhm,
entrepreneurial side.
definitely.
And we'll be revisiting this topic for all
Yeah,
of the all of the women out there who need it. So
right,
I'm
exactly.
glad we got to dig into it today, and we'll be back for more.
Yes, definitely. We'll see y'all later. Continue to follow and subscribe and stay with us, because this journey is one that is about to be just, I just see it being impactful and outstanding and giving.
Mm.
Mm.
See you in the next one.
Yep. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can catch more episodes like this one.
And join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Be sure to share this channel with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.